and welcome to ShopTalk, the podcast built to unlock union strength through collaborative discussion. Our aim is to have a naturally flowing conversation on relevant union issues, events, and topics. Thank you for joining.
Hello and welcome to Shop Talk. I'm your co-host, Frank Perry.
Hey, it's Robert Bass.
Thank you for joining us today on another episode of our podcast. So today we'll be going over some of the biggest developments over the last 2 weeks, and we'll also be bringing up some old business, some updates on some items that we spoke about on our last episode 2 weeks ago. I also wanted to say to everyone listening out there, happy Father's Day. We definitely want to make sure we put some recognition on all the fathers who have raised us and who have taught us the values that drive us in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that, Frank. And as you said, we wanted to follow up on some issues that we talked about last week, one of which was legislature pay and our pay, right? We did a comprehensive review of the side letter agreement negotiations and how that affected our pay. And we also talked about the legislator pay. And so we wanted to give you an update on that. In that regard, we will pull up the 2020 salaries and the 2021 salaries. And hopefully you see them side by side right now.
We're good. Yeah.
And you'll see that the salaries as of 2020 and then coming up in December 2021, what they'll change to. And so we see the governor is getting about a $9,000 increase. So across the board, they got over 4% on their raise compared to the 1.05% over that same time period that we got. And so we just wanted to follow up with everyone and let you see this for a minute, kind of see how their pay changed, and close that loop a little bit for us. While that's up, we'll see if did we have any hands up or any questions on the legislative pay, Frank?
Yeah, Frank has his hand up.
Yes, I don't have any questions on the legislative pay. I just want to take a moment real quick to apologize to Brother Bays for yesterday for calling him out on that video. I thought you had spoken or taken part in that one video because it was just that your picture was up there, but I just had assumed that you had taken part in that, and I apologize for calling you out on that.
Oh, okay. Well, appreciate that. What Frank's referring to, is there was question, Frank had questioned whether or not I was part of a swearing in for the new president-elect, Richard Brown. And I actually had gotten on the call for a different matter to help speak to a representative issue that's going on. But I guess because of that, my picture was on the header, and so I get incorrectly assumed that I was part of the swearing in that he did, which I was not. The swearing in for the president-elect actually happens this coming weekend during the board of directors meeting. So it'll be this Saturday, more specifically Sunday. And so that'll happen there. And so, we'll just giving you one final look at the legislative pay that we have. And I will stop sharing my screen. But like I said, we wanted to close that loop, and appreciate the apology. Sorry, I do appreciate that, Frank. And so after legislative pay, now that we kind of closed that loop, like I said, talked about, the 1% we got, we wanted to move on to the next topic. Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, so the biggest topic that came out this past week for SEIU Local 1000 is an update on the elections protests. And in our previous episode, we had spoken about the status of the elections and told you that we would be having an update on the elections protests being filed. We have had a determination made on the election protests. So I wanted to first share a screen showing the union update that details the determination made by the elections committee. So I'll share that right now. Okay, I hope you can all see that. It's the SEIU Local 1000 update. So the election protest committee did end up granting a protest and is ordering an election for the statewide Local 1000 office of VP of bargaining. And they established that the election only for that office is going to be taking place on July 2nd. So coming up here fairly shortly. There were also a number of other protests filed concerning other leadership elections, and they've determined that no other protests were found valid by the committee. So all other election results are final. So how did we get here? I'm going to stop sharing screen now. So how did we get here to the point where they've called a new election for the VP of bargaining position, and they determined that the initial election for the VP of bargaining should be voided? Well, first we will have to go back in time, and at first there was a nomination period for anybody who wanted to be a candidate for VP of bargaining, and that was the first business day of January, and it closed later at 5 p.m. the second Monday in February. So there were no issues reported for the opening of nominations. There were no issues that were reported for the closing of nominations to get on the ballot for VP of bargaining. As far as we're aware or has been reported to the election committee, there were no technical issues that prevented stewards from running for the VP position. Of course, when nominations are when a person nominates themselves to be on the ballot for VP of bargaining, that goes to the election committee, and their job is to vet the candidates to ensure that they're qualified to run for that position and to be elected in that position. Unfortunately, the determination of the election protest found that two individuals who were on the ballot and who received almost 900 votes between them were not qualified to be on the ballot. So in fact, the problem wasn't that our election process was too restrictive. It was that it was extremely too lenient to the point of not following the basic rules or the basic policy file requirements that lay out the requirements for being able to run as a VP candidate or statewide office. So to get a little bit more background here, we want to show the policy file requirements. And so if you could bring that up, Robert. So this is the policy file, and it states for all candidates for Local 1000 statewide office, including the VP of bargaining, must have two things. First, they must be a member in good standing for 2 years immediately prior to the first day of the nominating period, which we talked about was the beginning of January. And two, they must be an active steward for the 2 years immediately prior to the first day of the nomination period as well. So what happened is the election ended up taking place with two individuals who did not meet those requirements. If we could show now, Robert, if you could show the election totals, what happened. So these totals reflect all the votes and who they were allocated towards. And as you can see, two individuals on this list, Sean Stringer, who received over 4% of the vote and 327 votes, and Robert the Plumber Jackson, who received over 7% of the vote and 567 votes. They were the two individuals who were not qualified to be on the ballot. So they were garnering between them, almost 900 votes. which when you look at the person who received the most votes could have gotten even more votes. And then if you look at the next three individuals, Kevin Menninger on the top, then going down, Robert Bays, and then Kim Cowart, they all had the possibility of winning the election if they were allocated those votes that should not have gone to Robert Jackson or Sean Stringer. So what we're looking at is really a situation where having these two individuals in the election really changed the results and how it would have went if it was only qualified individuals that were on the ballot. So after the election results came out, it later came to light that these two individuals, Sean Stringer and Robert Jackson, were not qualified to be on the ballot. So a protest was filed by the VP of bargaining candidates. These were all rolled into a joint protest by the election committee because they were essentially the same protest. And I want to make it clear that those three candidates, Kim, Kevin, and Robert, they were not protesting the person who got the most votes, which was Irene. They were protesting the inaccuracies that allowed the two unqualified candidates to make it on the ballot. The issue was that the election committee did not do their due diligence to make sure that everyone who was on the ballot was qualified to be there. So, you know, everyone who's active in the union knows Irene, and she's a nice person, and this was nothing that was against her. It was against the fact that one small aspect of this election process was flawed, and that was the process that determined who was allowed to get on the ballot. As I've previously mentioned, there was no problems with the nomination period, the opening of it, the closing of it. There was no technical issues that kept people from getting on the ballot. So all of the parts of the election of the VP of bargaining went smoothly and with no problems. The only problem that there was and that was protested and that was granted by the election committee was them vetting people properly to be on the ballot. So I want to show now, I want to show the determination letter that was shared and written by the election committee. So here's the letter, and it's addressed to Kim, Kevin, and Robert, and it confirms receipt of the election protest to the results, and it determined that two candidates of the VP of bargaining did not meet the eligibility criteria for being a steward for 2 years. So they concluded, and you can read it yourself here on screen. I won't read it word for word. That would probably be a little boring, but they concluded that since that part of the process was flawed, that they're going to hold a new election for the position with these two individuals taken off. So it's important to, to realize that this is in line with kind of how I've been explaining. Oh, that was a mistake. My bad. Technical difficulties. One moment. Okay, well, now it's not letting me share that again, so my apologies. But the letter was there, and it determined that there's going to be a new election taking place, and it's in line with what I was explaining, is that they found that the only part of the election that was flawed was the determination who was qualified or not qualified to be on the ballot. So a new election is going to be taking place. And if you could show the dates, Robert, share your screen to show the dates of the new election.
Can you see it?
Yes. Okay, so there's actually a date that I want to share before this, and that is, if everyone could take note of, it was on the first union update that I shared, and that date is June 22nd. So on Tuesday, by June 22nd, you have to make sure that your address is correct with the Member Resource Center. So make sure you do that. Make sure you call and make sure your address is correct, that you're going to be receiving the ballot, because in this last election, there was a lot of people that didn't receive ballots, that it went to the wrong location. So you want to make sure you call the Member Resource Center by Tuesday and make sure that that your address is correct. That's the last day to change what address can be in the system, to ensure that if you're a member, that you receive the ballot on time.
And
So we
that
see
number is 1-866-471-SEIU or 1-866-471-7348.
Yeah, so here's the number, write it down, and that's also available on the SEIU website, or you can Google it. But right here, we see that the balloting period is going to begin on July 2nd. So the ballots are going to be mailed to members. And if you do not receive your new ballot within 10 days, by July 12th, is the first day to request a replacement ballot. And once again, you can call the MRC to do that. And you have 4 days to do that until July 16th. That will be the last day to make sure you get a ballot for this VP of bargaining election. The ballot period will end on August 2nd, so you have to make sure it's returned by then to the union, and they will begin sorting them on the 3rd, counting them on the 4th, and by the 6th, they'll have official results that will be posted, in which case there will be another protest period in case there's more. Second August, you'll see is the law here.
Ooh, you cut out there at the end. So yeah, there will be another protest period, which is the 6th through the 13th, just in case there's anything that needs to be protested about this new election. Sorry, you cut out there a little bit, Frank.
Okay.
Cool. So is there any questions about, we'll leave this up right now. Any questions about this new election, the VP of bargaining, the election protest results, what we had just talked about? Let's see if we have any hands. It looks like Frank's hand's up. Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, thank you, Robert. My question is, since there is a new election, why aren't the nominations reopened up again to fill the 2 vacant slots? And also, what can we do as a local to make sure that this does not happen again?
So I'll try my best to answer that. So it's as I explained, the election committee looked at the VP of bargaining election, and they found that the only part that was messed up was not the nominating period. It was not the opening, closing, or there's no technical issues that prevented people from being on. So they found that the part of it that was flawed was their due diligence to make sure that everyone on the ballot was qualified to be on the ballot. That's essentially what they ruled on this case, and why there's not going to be a whole second new nominating period. People had plenty of time to get on the ballot, and they're not going to be redoing that aspect. This is to make up for the fact that that portion of the election went wrong, not the entirety of the portion. And then to ensure that this never happens again, I don't know personally what we can do as stewards to make sure this doesn't happen again. The election process is supposed to be handled by the election committee, and hopefully they would take this as, a warning to make sure that they do their due diligence in the future. I don't know if you have any comments, Robert.
Yeah, I would add to that there's a couple things. making sure, like you said, the election committee, does vet the people. I think they might have relied on an automated system this time. I think was part of the letter, right? It said an automated system didn't note and basically eliminate his ability to require to nominate himself. So when he went to nominate him, when those two people went to nominate themselves for this position, it should have said, hey, you're not allowed to run for this position because you don't meet the 2-year thing. And that didn't happen. The other side of that, though, is that there's only 7 or 8 candidates. So there's really no reason why an election committee of 4 people, 3 people plus an alternate, couldn't have taken the time, the months of time that had passed, between the nominating period and the election period to individually look up those very few names and ensure, the old fashioned way, as some would say. So I think that that's something that could be done, like checking the old fashioned way, especially because there's so few candidates, and not relying on technology that could fail you. And then in addition to that, I would say something that a lot of people said was out of the ordinary was the list of candidates wasn't published in advance. And so normally after the nominating period ended, like you said, then there was a short withdrawal period. And after that, you list, hey, here are the people who are running for each position. Well, instead, that was kept secret until the ballots physically started arriving at people's doors, and then people started self-reporting okay, I got my ballot, here's who's on the ballot, everyone. And while that was happening, there were people who were making calls to say, hey, we need to publish this list of candidates so that we can double check, right? So that could have been another fail safe that was skipped, where a lot of people would have said, oh, I see these 2 people you just published that you said are running, they don't qualify, and we could have had them removed from the ballot before ever getting there by having a lot more eyes on it, right, than just the election committee. So I think taking advantage of that gap in time and allowing everyone to see who's running, and increasing that transparency could have stopped this from happening. And so that's what I would say to that portion, Frank. Did that clear everything up? I don't see any other hands up. So is that?
Yeah, I just got one more comment. What do you guys think of in the future of maybe in-person electronic voting at the locals, at the offices, having like a system set up to where members actually physically have to go into the office there and they do their voting right then and there in the office?
Yeah, I think personally, I'm against any electronic voting of any sort. I think it's something that we kind of, I don't know if we can trust fully electronic voting. And I do know that, we do have to think about people who can't travel to the union headquarters and things like that. Our members and our union members and represented who have disabilities, who can't get out of the house or can't get, particularly far away. So the mailing of ballots in theory, should be the most accessible way to vote. And I do think it's the best way, but it definitely has had some problems where people haven't been, receiving their ballots, and definitely those problems have to be fixed. There's no system that's perfect, but I do think that it's the one with the least amount of cons to it. I don't know if you would feel the same way, Robert.
Yeah, I definitely do think that, agree with what Frank said. It is an interesting idea when it comes to voting. Ideally, I think it should be the most accessible we can, ensuring people, get their ballots, that they have an opportunity to vote. One thing that was crossing my mind when Frank was just talking is that we have this electronic, email or like a member login system, right? So in order to view the election results, in order to get some of these updates that Frank was showing on the screen earlier, you have to go through a member login portal. And so that portal should also be able to show what your current address is on file. And so you could update it in real time yourself instead of having to worry about, going through another process. And so people could check that, regularly. You should be able to see your voting status on there. So it's like, hopefully we could maybe one day get it connected to a system where it not only shows my address, it shows the ballot was mailed to that address. Then it shows that you received my ballot, then it was counted, kind of like we see in some of these bigger elections around, county and state and stuff like that, where you can actually track your ballot. I know we're a small entity, and so maybe we can't get that. Maybe it would be out of the budget. It would be something I would have to analyze before saying anything too concrete, but I'm pretty sure it's not. We can make a lot of changes to the way we do things to make it much better than it is for no or very little money, extra money, especially since we're already going through all these links to kind of have, these paywalls and member logins and things like that. And I just want to make sure no one said anything in the chat.
I think Annika had her hand up and then she just put it down. I don't know if
I
she
think
wants
it was
to
a
speak.
wave emoji actually, but yes, if you want anyone who wants to speak, please raise your hand.
I was actually just clapping because it really should just, to me, be that simple. There's kind of no reason, like you said, if you have to log in already and there's all these different walls that you have to get beyond, then why couldn't we just simply, all the information, the DLC that you're a part of, right? Kind of all the basics that you would need without having to call the MRC. There's no reason why our IT department, that is one of our fully staffed departments. So I know a lot of money goes into that. No reason why that isn't already being done, in my opinion. Kind of as well as the problems that we've had with communication in terms of with communicating to our members. Again, I don't see a reason why, they always talk about this data dump from the state. Why haven't we already kept our data that we've kind of verified and secured with our members, and or anybody that, even people who have dropped? Why don't we maintain that separately than wherever they dump data? That to me has never made sense. So yeah, it was just a clap, hands up. I'd raise the roof if I could, but super on point. Yep.
Thanks, Annika. Yeah, so we're kind of wrapping up. I know a couple people just came on the Zoom, so if you want to contribute, like I said, raise your hand at any time, and we'll try to address you per the topic. So right now we're just finishing up talking about the election protests. Frank asked some good questions, and so that kind of settles, it sounds like, the debate for and I'll show the dates one more time, for the election protest for VP of bargaining, why it happened, why it's, we're not going back and doing new nominations, and why we're going forward from where we're at, how no one really was, challenging Irene. I think a lot of people probably even feel bad that she has to go and try to get the most votes the second time. But out of fairness and out of doing things right, it's very important for our organization, especially when there were so many votes in question, almost 900, like Frank said. It could have spun the results away so many different directions, including Irene having a more dominant victory, or including her losing, or whatever. So that's where we're at. Here are the dates. And we'll move, that's for the VP. And then we were going to move on to the other three elections. So what Frank had showed earlier, on the SEIU website, and I think via email I had gotten on Friday, I believe, they sent an email that said that only the VP of bargaining was going to be changed, and essentially any protest that they received from right here. A number of protests in the bold. A number of protests were filed concerning other leadership election races. No other protests were found valid by the election protest committee. All other election results are final. So it is final that Richard Lewis Brown will be sworn in as the next president. Annika Walls, who's on the call, will be and continue, but also, be sworn in for her second term. And David Jimenez will be sworn in as well this coming weekend. And then we're going to have to wait on the VP of bargaining, which is kind of our segue to our next. So the policy file says that in that instance, the VP of bargaining currently will stay on. So Tony Owens is going to remain the VP of bargaining past his date, until this new election happens, which kind of will segue us into what's called SBAC, which is our normal bargaining functions that happen. Before we get that, we saw a hand went up. So before we transition to SBAC, it looks like we have Mary. And so go ahead, Mary.
Hi, thank you for taking my call, Robert. My question in regards to the revoting, because it'll be a different tenure, or I should say a different president, will we have a totally different election committee that will be reviewing this revote?
That's an interesting question. I think that might largely be left up to Richard. So basically right now our policy files say that the president is to fill all committees. And so currently Yvonne Walker is the president. She filled the election committee. She filled the election protest committee for this last election. And I don't know if she's named an election protest committee for the next election, but the president position is going to change come June 30th. And so the president then, from my understanding of the policy file, would have the option to either name a new committee or change the committee, depending on if one was named. So in theory, according to the policy file, the way I understand it, yes, Richard Brown could come in, name a new election committee when he starts on June 30th or July 1st, name a new election protest committee and have those people be the committees, is the way I understand it. Whether he'll do that or not, we'd have to get Richard himself to answer to that. If someone disagrees with my understanding of the policy file, I'm fine with that too. That's just the way I understand it based on what I've read. I don't know if you had anything different, Frank.
No, that would be my same answer. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit in flux, but it probably comes, a lot after on some of these answers.
Yeah. So like we said, that kind of segues us. So that's the only re-election that's happening. And so we also have an event called SBAC that's coming up, and it usually happens towards the end of July, middle to end of July. And that's our bargaining conference. And so with these last elections, I know a lot focus has been on who is going to be elected president in these 3 VP positions. But there was also other elections that were occurring, and those were for DLC presidents, those were for DBERs, district bargaining unit representatives, CBERs, classification bargaining unit representatives, and various bargaining unit chairs. Those all those people who were elected then or assigned in their DLC. So some places they might not have been elected, but the DLC will assign someone to a vacant position. Those people are all supposed to come together in July. And when they come together in July, they have elections and they vote in what's called the bunk, which is the bargaining team for each of the 9 different bargaining units. And that is supposed to kind of all be run, and a lot of the rules for electing, those positions and all that are dependent on participation of the VP of bargaining. It's kind of one of the VP of bargaining's more main functions. And so, yes, according to the policy file, we have a fail-safe in our situation where we will have a VP of bargaining who is Tony Owens, who is going to remain in his position. So if we were to hold SBAC, and vote on these new bargaining teams in July, Tony could be there to facilitate it. The other side to that, though, is that we have people who, were running for these VP of bargaining positions. We have this kind of kerfuffle, or whatever you would say, with the VP of bargaining itself. So now we're having to re-elect. And in that meantime, there's people who are saying, well, we should take the voters' will into consideration and make sure that we finish the VP of bargaining election and have the new VP of bargaining there to oversee SBAC. And so the thought is raised of trying to delay SBAC so that the new VP of bargaining election happens first. And then after that, we can convene SBAC and have all the elections and votes on who is on what bargaining team and so forth, and kind of churn the current July one into maybe a training, not to waste anyone's time or anything like that, or delay bargaining, because it is important that we start bargaining and get these teams together ASAP. But also, it's important, some people say it's important that whoever the VP of bargaining is going to be throughout the duration of bargaining should be a part of this process when it happens. Plus, there's the policy portions that say the VP of bargaining has to be involved. And so there's talk on that. We kind of wanted to open it up to everyone here and see what people's thoughts are on whether or not SBAC should be delayed or shouldn't be delayed as a result of this. So it looks like Frank's hand's up. Go ahead, Frank. Frank, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I believe that we should stay on track, but on a side note, given if you win, because I know that you're running for VP of bargaining, Robert. So in the event, I wanted to ask you, and I'm thankful that Kevin Manager and Annika is also on here also. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Robert, if you are elected vice president for bargaining, how would you have handled that? I'm not trying to knock on Robert for his videos or anything, but on the video that he had released on Friday, where it appears that he was asking members to participate in like a sick out, how would you approach that?
Okay.
Because if they were to participate in that, they wouldn't be covered under our MOU or under the contract. There would be nothing that we could do for them if they were to get called on the carpet for it.
Right. So if you don't mind, we'll table that one and we'll get back to it, but we will stay on topic for now, and then we'll come back to that sidebar question after. We want to see if anyone has their hand specifically for the SBAC delay or not. So we're going to go with Mary next.
Hi, thank you, Robert. I think that it's a great idea. We can continue with SBAC on a training basis, and I'll tell you why. The perfect example is what took place with the VPs for bargaining. It wasn't vetted appropriately, and we have to do this revote because people weren't, non-qualified people became on the ballot. That being said, Robert, we had a lot of individuals that ran for certain positions who may not be no longer bargaining chairs. Am I correct in saying that? Or are they qualifying? Or, they might not no longer be the bargaining chair because they applied for something else. Just to make sure that everything's, there's no need to rush. I think we should continue as, like with SBAC on a training basis. Like you said, we can just continue with putting things together for bargaining. But as far as voting, I think we need to, take a little breathing room so that we can, moving forward, ensure that nothing's missed, I should say, for the appropriate candidates. And that's my thought. And I do agree, whoever the VP of bargaining is should definitely be part of the election and oversight of when we do get back to electing those people for the bunk. Whoever that VP person is should be part of that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Leslie Wong.
Hi. I just wanted, first of all, I don't even know that I'm that clear, like who kind of organizes and sets the agenda and stuff for the SBAC? Would that be VP bargaining?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point in time, like how far in advance do they schedule or prepare for it? Are the dates already set for the next year?
I believe we have dates for the next SBAC already in July. But keep in mind, I believe it's still an online event. So in terms of whether it could be changed or not is a little more flexible than it has been in prior years, where you have, hotel reservations for hundreds of people and you have, contracts in place and things like that. So not to say that it wouldn't be difficult or that there wouldn't be, things that we have to do to ensure it, but I think that it'd be a lot easier than ever in terms of being able to delay it a little bit, or like I said, kind of get a training going and let people get familiar with each other. Cause it's also, as a side note to this specific topic, it is interesting to go and immediately vote for your team when everyone just got in and just got elected a few weeks before. So I think it probably, just from a organizational standpoint, probably a better idea to have people get acquainted with each other first, kind of build those relationships and trust with each other, then go and have, a vote a little bit later. It's just a personal thing.
Right. Well, agree. That's why I was asking, because I know that if it were like normal circumstances where regular physical meetings occurred, then you have to allow a lot more lead time for organizing such, meetings and conferences and that sort of thing. And with the change in administration, I just didn't know how is that being affected right now, because we're changing. I mean, Annika's still there. She's the only one really, right, out of the 4 that's remaining. So that's only holdover from last, at this point in time, at least from the previous current administration. So if this is something that it's like, but Tony is still VP bargaining, so should he be setting it up, even though he's not going to be here, or he's still actually going to be in office because of the elections being delayed or redone? Has he been even working on that? Isn't that something he should have been doing anyway, or even if he weren't going to be the one heading it up, to prepare for the next one? That would, I don't know, maybe it's stupid of me to think that. I always thought that would be his role or part of what he'd do, or at least the office and union, leadership in general should have been planning this anyway. Things like that are always usually planned ahead. That's why I asked if the dates are set. But yes, as far as not knowing who we're going to have, it does make sense that the new VP should be involved in this, because what are they supposed to do anyway, right? I mean, isn't that why we're electing them? So I would think it's prudent to delay, just for the fact that we're not going to have all our crap together, you know what I mean? But I think as far as like not doing anything definitive, if it were something like training or kind of getting to know each other, they could certainly do a preliminary type thing like that, or start working on kind of some ideas, or maybe polling people and do a little team building. But I don't think any important decisions, you don't know what tax to take, which way to go, until it's a little more established. That's just my opinion. You asked for our input, and that's what I wanted to leave you with.
Thank you very much for your input. Yeah, we appreciate the feedback and your stance on that. And we have a couple hands up, but you mentioned a couple things. I don't want to speak for Tony. I don't know what Tony has or hasn't been doing. I know that organizationally there is an SBAC dates in place. As we talked about, it's just a matter of what are they going to be doing at the SBAC. Normally, like I said, it would be voting, and there's a whole secret balloting process and all this, which I'm not sure if everyone even knows how that translates specifically to Zoom. And so, yeah, and some people are calling for delaying or canceling, and I think that could be a fine option, but maybe also we could just do the training, and acquaintance and team building and stuff like that. And we can have another SBAC in the beginning of September and, handle it then. Personal opinion, Kevin, go ahead.
Well, I think, sorry for coming in late, other stuff going on. I have
Happy Father's Day.
There's that.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
And I'll be making a trip to the veterinarian for my dog. That's another policy
no.
tradition. Just a follow up. But regarding SBAC, yes, the VP of bargaining is supposed to set the agenda and preside over the SBAC. But historically, traditionally in local Wauwatosa's history, the roles of all the officers have been based on, or executed based on the people in those roles and the relationships they had in the executive committee, rather than for the way the roles were spelled out. I mean, nominally, yes, the VP of bargaining organizes, designs, and runs SBAC. Did Margarita do that? I think she probably did. Had a lot of free hand because her relationship with the president, Yvonne Walker, was such that she'd be allowed to do that. Completely different situation for Tony Owens, where he was iced out. But that is his role. And as I think you've covered already, until he has a new person to take over office, he is in office until at least, it looks like August 20th, or soon after that. So it should be him to do that. Now, what happens in an SBAC is the first SBAC is always in like the second week, maybe the third week of July. Now, understand, this would be populated then by the Deebers, who just got elected, just took office that July. Maybe they're reelected, but many of these people would have just taken office. So it's built in, you have a bunch of newbies there. And then these newbies have to vote for their bunk leaders, their bargaining unit leaders or chairs. So it's already kind of behind the 8 ball for them, but this is kind of built, it's baked in, and there's not really a good way around that, because you do need to have some chairs because there are breakout sessions. This is especially true for units 1, 4, and I would say 17 most likely, probably even 3 as well, because you do have some bargaining unit specific issues and maybe organizing that's going to be necessary within those units. And so it's good to have a chair that you can start that effort moving and see who's going to be good to step up and what they're willing to do. So yeah, we do want to have an SBAC sooner rather than later, but there is no calendar-based drop dead. We must have the SBAC by this date or all hell's going to break loose this year. If it was delayed a month or 2 months, we get a new VP of bargaining, that I don't see that as breaking anything. So as far as the running of it, who is the VP of bargaining when SBAC takes place, that's not as big a deal, except for the fact of this. The VP of bargaining for the first SBAC oversees the election. That's what we've been mainly talking about with SBAC. This is a 2-day SBAC, it's online. First day is going to be training. Second day is going to be bargaining. Well, first day is going to be training and people politicking for votes. And the second day is going to be the actual voting. And if there's any problems, and there have been problems in SBAC voting, by problems I mean ties, there's been protests, there's been questions, about if was this right or not, and those go to the VP of bargaining. So is it proper that it should go to the outgoing VP of bargaining, who'd be overseeing it if we did it before August, late August, or should it be the new VP of bargaining? That's a judgment call on how the Deebers want to handle that. So I don't know if I added anything to the conversation. Just trying to give some background of how it's worked before and what we're looking at this new landscape. It's uncharted territory for the most part, because we have such a new crew coming in that it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think you did add in a very important point, which is traditionally in the past couple of years, there has, whether founded or unfounded, whether there's a reason or not, the claim has always been by Tony and some of the other VPs that they haven't been allowed to do their job. So Tony wasn't necessarily allowed to run SBAC, he claims, last time. But there's a new VP or new president-elect who is talking about doing things differently, a lot differently, right? Creating a new culture of excellence, as he puts it. And so the way that plays in is, would he let the VP of bargaining run SBAC as they're supposed to via the policy file? That which then brings the question you asked, is should that be the person going out or the person who's coming in for the next 3 years? And then there's actually been further questions about whether SBAC was even going to continue, as it has in the past, and whether the president-elect has any plans to continue bargaining the way we always have, or if he wants to fundamentally change the way we go about bargaining and our bargaining process somehow. And he really hasn't spoken to that, and really hasn't committed to the SBAC even as it has any meaning anymore in our union, which is really interesting. And so I think that, there is a lot of things going on. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see first, right? Is he's getting sworn in next weekend. We're going to see people are asking to delay SBAC. That's within the president's power. So what is he going to do? Is he going to, work with people and continue the same process we've had and make it better? Or is SBAC going to, or maybe he has a better vision to say, hey, SBAC hasn't worked out for us and I have this better idea, and we all jump on board on that. Or, I think time will tell what's going on, but it's kind of hard to predict these things when we're not exactly sure, getting the definitive answers from the president-elect yet. And so we appreciate the input on that. Was there anyone else who had any input on the topic, any of the three topics really that we talked about today, which was the legislature's pay bump, the VP of bargaining redo, and all the election and dates and timelines with that, and then now SBAC and what we should be asking our DLC leadership to do with SBAC. I see that there's a phone number, 510-531-6141. Are you?
Hi, Geraldine Fisher.
Excuse me, hello?
This is Geraldine Fisher.
Hey, Geraldine Fisher, how's it going today?
Very well, thank you. I just want to chime in on this SBAC thing real quick. I think we should delay SBAC voting until after we get the new Vice President of Bargaining in there, for many reasons, some of which have already been mentioned. I think that it will give us a better running union process if we start with the members that are going to go forward for this next 3 years. Now, you're right. A new president may change all of that, but changing it, changes come no matter what, no matter how we stay. So assuming that we have 3 years ahead of us, or approximately 3 years ahead of us, I'd like the new VP to be on board with that. This is not, it hasn't been fair for the last 3 years, but I think this would be fair for the next 3 years to allow us to work together with who the players are and how they will play. That's my thought. I love the idea of having training in July and SBAC in August or whatever. Thank you for letting me talk.
August or September. Thank you for your feedback, Shirley Fisher. We appreciate it. And yes, that that is, I guess, good input. We'll see what happens. That's what I wanted to say is how to go about doing this. So if you want to see SBAC delayed, from my understanding, obviously you should tell other people that that's your wishes, including your DLC presidents who, maybe have to vote on it or who can call a board meeting if necessary. But also my understanding of the policy file is that you have the VP of bargaining and the president who are responsible for convening all meetings. And so I think reaching out to the president-elect and or Tony Owens and telling them your wishes will be prudent as well, and hopefully they'll listen to, whatever people think. Did anyone have any other ideas on? I know Kevin is very knowledgeable. So Kevin, would that be the best way in your estimation to kind of go about seeing your wishes through?
Restate what you're saying is the best way to just go ahead with the
so several people are saying they would like to see SBAC delayed. So what would be their best thing that they could do to ensure that happens, or besides communicating to us right here? So how it was
organize behind your DLC president and your DVers, and push it out to President-elect Brown and to Tony, who's still being effectively a VP of bargaining beyond his normal set term. They would have the influence to do that. And I think it's worthwhile. I also, from my conversations with Mr. Brown, I think that suggestion would be he's receptive to considering the idea. So I think it's a good idea. I lean towards wanting to delay it as well because there's just weird turmoil right now. And I think Jerry Lee made a very good point about having the whole new team coalesce together behind whoever the new VP is going to be it Irene or you, Robert, or me, or Kim, or whomever. It would give them a chance to come together as well and create the new SBAC that's under that aegis of that new VP of bargaining.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that you touched on a little bit before, this is easy to move because it's virtual. If this was, if we had to meet, if this was scheduled to meet in person, we had the contract set with the hotel, it'd be a different thing altogether. So we're kind of lucky in that this would be an easy move.
All right. Or we can just easy addition. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jerry Lee.
I'm just agreeing with that yes, the SBAC coming in July is virtual. So it's not like we really have to scramble terribly hard. We probably by now know the people that have signed up to participate in their SBAC meetings, and the chairs can pretty readily put out the word that it would be just a training session. Just my thoughts.
One other thing it allows, I just realized, we have new DLC presidents coming in, and there could be a lot of DBIR vacancies out there that these presidents could then have time to fill before that next SBAC and affect the elections then as well.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so it looks like there's no more hands up for those 3 topics that we were discussing on the episode today. And so this episode generally isn't, I guess like to talk campaigns or anything like that. It's nothing like that. But I know Frank had a sidebar question, and we did promise to get back to it. So if you could ask your question again, that wasn't related to the 3 topics, you could do that now, Frank, and we'll try to answer it for you.
Okay, yes. Again, this is for Robert, Kevin, and Annika, if they could chime in on it too. As you all know, on Friday morning, the president-elect, I'm not trying to bang on the president, but he came out with his video wherein it appears that he is asking for the members to participate in a sick out. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, and yours too, Robert. In case, bear in mind, if you become the new vice president of bargaining, how would you guys approach this?
All right. Thanks. I guess I don't know if I want to defer to the 2 people who are already in that position before me, who's not and might never be. But I guess I think you were asking me first before they were on the call. So what are my thoughts on it? I'm not really aware or know exactly the details of what he was doing. You're saying that it was asking people to do a sick out. And whether or not I agree with that, I don't know if he was doing that or wasn't. Not saying I don't trust you, Frank, but I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to it. But yes, there are roles and responsibilities that you have once you're in an elected position. And so whether I think that he should be calling for a sick out and be like, rah, rah, now is different probably than I would feel if I was in that position, just because there are requirements. And so I would, if I'm elected, it sounds like what you're asking is I would make sure to meet those requirements. And I think that there is a way to be rah-rah, to organize, to really rally people and get the fire that we need in this union to really take it to the next level, because we really need that. We need passion and energy and excitement. And so I understand that there are ways to create that, and some of those ways might cross lines, and other ways you could kind of get away with it. And so I think that, I will try to do my best to always take us with as much energy and enthusiasm and togetherness as we can, while also not breaking any laws or rules. rules or anything that would kind of put us in jeopardy. And so that's a tough balancing act, whether or not he was flirting with that line and crossed it or not. I can't speak to, I haven't seen the video, but I don't knock anyone for bringing us up to that line, because we need that energy. It's essential. So I guess that's what I'll say on that. Kevin?
Yes, well, if anything else, Richard has proven that his energy fires some people up and gets people involved. And that's something, it's a new verve to this union I think we needed. Now, I've viewed the video, well, skimmed it a few times. His videos are kind of long for my taste and kind of repetitive, so I can't always stick with them. But I try to watch the points in where he's talked about this, because I was asked on Facebook to comment, and I just did recently. And essentially I said this: I watched it a couple times, and he did not actually call for a sick out. Actually, sick leave was never even mentioned. He said essentially that, some people said they weren't going to come into work, and he would say, you know what, I got your back. I would tell management, don't mess with the people. Don't mess with the people, not today. That's essentially what he's saying. Now, is that saying he's going to back them? Is that saying he's calling for a sick out or a workout or something like that? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it rises to that level, not to the level that the state could charge us with an unfair labor practice. It doesn't quite rise to that level. It gets right up to that line. And frankly, as a steward, he should be perhaps admonished that, you're getting dangerously close to some illegal actions here. But as an elected leader, that's kind of what's necessary sometimes. Get up to that line and push people. Were I elected and have to counsel them, I'd say pretty much the same thing. Careful where you're going there. You don't want to go too far, but giving people the energy, and that Juneteenth is a federal holiday, and it will become part of our contract, a recognized holiday as well. I'm for that. Should it be last Friday? Well, that's a little bit too soon. The legislature can't move that fast, but it should happen by next year. Absolutely. So it's easy to look for sins in somebody with whom you disagree, but to be objective about it, I don't think he quite crossed that line. And so we're not quite there, but he should be cautioned, and I'm sure he has been, not to cross that line. You're getting dangerously close, but I think he's okay in this particular case.
Thanks. And Annika, since he asked for your thoughts, do you care to speak?
I actually, like you, have not gotten a chance to watch his video. I was fortunate enough, since I don't get to all the time anymore, watch my son play basketball down in Southern California. And so I did like an overnight road trip and was the main driver because my husband fractured his foot. So I was off of Facebook and didn't view the video myself. I've seen some people's comments about it. And so I tend to actually agree with both of you, to where you need our members, our represented employees, need to feel supported by their leadership and by their organization so that they feel confident enough to do actions. And I do think you need to come close to that line, step up right to it. But I also agree that we have to be very careful, and we have to know what rules to follow so that we don't break them and we don't get charged with any unfair labor practices. And I think there's lots of examples of things that we've even done in the past that have been successful, that do move the state or do move certain agencies, right? To either come back to the table or to consider things. I mean, we've done it in at social services in the disabilities division. And so, I've seen actions work, and actions not being actual stick outs, right? We have to be very careful about how we are moving and organizing our members. So that's, without having seen the video, that's what I'll say about kind of all that I know. But I do need to catch up on it. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I got to run, but thanks for having me on.
Hey, good luck with your dog, Kevin. Hopefully everything goes well.
It should be. Thanks.
And yeah, that kind of wraps the show for today. We talked about the 3 topics. I'd say the most important thing in terms of next step that we want to leave you with and refresh you one more time is any and everyone you know who's in the union, including yourself, communicate to them that they have until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd, to call the MRC at 1-866-471-SEIU and make sure that their address on file is the address that, is correct, is their latest and greatest, and where they want their ballot to be sent. And other than that, anything else, Frank?
No, we'll continue to give you updates on the VP of Bargaining election, on whether there's any changes to SBAC, and tune in on future episodes to see all the latest union updates. And if you want to take part in the conversation, contact us at talkshop1000@gmail.com and share this with our other members as well, so they can get clued in and they can be informed. Robert and I's mission is to make sure people are informed on these issues. The communication is one thing people are continuously saying is broken down between the union and its members. So we're trying to bridge that gap. So help us bridge it by sharing this with your fellow representatives